Hello. This is Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. I'm Theodore Parker, and this is a sideshow. We have a winter weather advisory headed in this direction. There will also be a list of school closings to follow. Again, in your area, if the COVID-19 positivity rate is above 5%, wear a mask. If you're watching the sideshow on Facebook and Instagram, don't forget to like, comment, and share in the box below. If you're watching the sideshow on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. At this point, I'd like to mention that I've received notifications that I have new subscribers on YouTube, so welcome to the viewing audience. You can buy the Sideshow coffee cup from me for $15 plus shipping and handling through Cash App. Pay me, Theodore Parker. Again, welcome to my new subscribers. There's one thing I wanted to share with you today. Over the weekend and since the beginning of this year, there have been a number of mass shootings. And at this point in 2022, there were not as many. So the number has increased for the same duration of time for this new year. So the article that I wanted to share with you is entitled, "Don't Be Numb to This, Battling Despair Over Gun Deaths." This is kind of featuring Vice President Kamala Harris as she showed up at the memorial in front of the Star Ballroom Dance Studio after a mass shooting there took the lives of 11 people. But it's from the perspective of a parent whose child was a victim of mass shooting. So I'll just begin. It's out of Buffalo, New York, and it's called "Increasingly It Feels Like America's at War with Itself." In New Orleans, just days into the new year, a 14-year-old girl was shot to death along with her father and uncle. A few days after, in a Virginia classroom, a 6-year-old boy pulled out a gun and shot his first grade teacher. That news was eclipsed by a mass shooting at a California dance studio that left 11 people dead. A day later, and a few hundred miles away, a farm worker opened fire in a beachside town, killing 7 co-workers. 3 more were killed and 4 wounded in a shooting at a short-term rental home in an upscale Los Angeles neighborhood early Saturday. Just keeping track of all the shootings has become overwhelming, with the locations, circumstances, and the names of the victims running together in a seemingly endless trail of bloodshed and grief. And many Americans, are deeply pessimistic that anything will soon change. And President Joe Biden signed a bill last year to fight gun violence, the first such measure to pass Congress in a generation. A substantial majority supported it, but 78% said they believed it would do little or nothing at all, a survey by the Pew Research Center found. The sheer number of killings and the glacial pace of the political response breeds a sense of powerlessness and despair, said Pedro Nogueira, the dean of the School of Education at the University of Southern California and a sociologist who has studied gun violence for more than 2 decades. "I don't think anybody feels good about where we are at, even gun enthusiasts. But if all that might make you think America's going numb to gun violence," Zanetta Everhart would disagree furiously. Everhart's then 19-year-old son, Zaire, was working his part-time job at a Buffalo supermarket last May when a gunman stormed in looking for black people to kill. 10 died in the attack. Zaire was shot in the neck but survived. I don't think that the country is becoming numb to it, but I think that the country is frustrated, she said, and I think that people are tired. You know, we don't want to hear about this. We don't want to hear about our children dying by gun violence. And we don't want to hear about our seniors who were killed in the California studio attack. How awful, how heartbreaking. But that makes Eberhard and others even more determined to find ways to stem the violence. The month after the supermarket shooting, she and other victims' relatives went to Washington, D.C., testifying before a House committee about the need for gun safety legislation. 2 weeks later, Biden signed a gun violence bill. That success and her son's continuing recovery kept her energized. But in a country where attitudes about guns and violence are often contradictory, charting a course of action makes for uneasy calculus. Overall, 71% of Americans say gun laws should be stricter, according to a 2022 poll by the University of Chicago, Harvard School of Public Policy, and the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. But in the same poll, 52% said it is also highly important to protect Americans' right to own guns for personal safety. Last year's gun violence law was designed to incrementally toughen requirements for young people to buy guns, deny firearms to more domestic abusers, and help local authorities temporarily take weapons from people judged to be dangerous. Most of its $13 billion cost would go to bolster mental health programs and for schools. This year, though, the number of shooting deaths are already deeply discouraging. The nation's first mass shooting last year happened on January 23rd. By the same date this year, the nation had already endured 6 mass shootings, leaving 29 people dead, according to database compiled by the Associated Press, USA Today, and Northeastern University. It tracks every attack in the U.S. that has claimed at least 4 lives, not including the shooters, since 2006. Unfortunately, we think we have become immune to it, said Mark Gist, a professor at Quinnipiac College who studies gun violence and public policy. It's become a part of life. Fred Gutenberg, whose 14-year-old daughter, Jamie, was killed when a gunman rampaged through Parkland, Florida High School in 2018, knows too well how overwhelming the violence can be. Excuse me. The immediate instinct to these shootings, he said, is to think, here we go again. But it doesn't end there. It's not that Americans don't care, it's that we let it go too far, he said. America is paying attention. People are more engaged on this issue than they've ever been. For years, he's been pushing in Congress in Florida for legislation known as Jamie's Law, which would require people buying ammunition to undergo the same background checks required to buy a gun. The bills have stalled repeatedly, but he's not giving up. While mass killings like Parkland grab much of the attention, more than half of America's roughly 45,000 annual firearm deaths are from suicide. Of gun killings, the vast majority leave only 1 or 2 people dead. Many of those deaths go unnoticed, beyond from the authorities and the people left behind. 8 months after the supermarket attack, doctors have been unable so far to remove all the bullet fragments lodged inside the body of Everett's son, some of them dangerously close to vital organs. Don't be numb to this. This should hurt you. You should feel